welcome to another episode. In this episode today we're going to tear down this paperweight and see what damage occurred inside. If you haven't already seen, if you click the video here, you will see me removing this from my Mini. It's been sitting around in my garage, it has for a while, and I need to start creating some space for some other stuff, so I want to get rid of it. There are some parts on it, however, I want to salvage. Some parts I want to keep for mock-up, and some that I've definitely got no use for, so we'll be going. So let's start with some of the easy stuff, like the water pump, fan, heat tap, and the manifolds. That, by the way, people, is a mechanical fuel pump, and the lighter one for some reason came with this phenolic spacer. Worth holding on to because it's actually a good pump. Just a bit dirty.
That all depends on what you're feeling from me. Show you all the way. Let me show you all the ways. Oh, let me show you all the ways.
Now we have all the easy items removed off the engine, it's now time to turn our attention to some more technical areas. So we'll begin with the cylinder head. First thing that needs to go is the rockers. That will allow us to pull the push rods out, and then we can start undoing the cylinder head bolts. Normally when you take push rods out of an engine, you get yourself a piece of cardboard and punch a load of holes in and keep them in order for exhaust valve, inlet valve and which cylinder. However, this engine's never going back together, so it's not really particularly important that I keep them in order. If I was ever to put them in another engine, the whole valve train would be completely refreshed, so it wouldn't really matter. I'm slowly rotating the engine over by hand, which I probably shouldn't be able to do, so I think it shows how little compression this thing has left. But by doing so, the camshaft is bumping the lifters up so I can get hold of it. The last one. Now I'll carry on, I will, with removing the rest of the head stud bolts and taking the cylinder head off. I'll have to check, but I don't think on something like a classic mini engine that the head studs are torque to yield, so we may be able to reuse them. If not, there'll be little asterisks and some wording around here that will correct me. Now eventually I want all the head studs out of this block, so I'm going to do the good old dual nut trick and lock them together so I can wind sled out. This little fella here is what's called your bypass hose, and anybody who's had minis will always tell you what an absolute nightmare they are to change. They also seem to be one of the main points for failing, which causes overheating of minis. Now I'm lucky, I've never ever had to change one, mine's always been in good nick, and the only time that one's ever been changed, I didn't do it, someone else did it for me. So now I'm going to see how difficult it is to get it out. Okay, that was a lot easier than I was expecting it to be. Sludgy water pump. Now for the moment of truth, with everything released, cylinder head should come off. Oh, beautiful. Doesn't matter what the engine is, if you ever take the cylinder head off, keep the gasket that was with it. Because if your engine's ever been skimmed and they put a slightly different thickness of head gasket, usually there's telltale marks with these things to say what was done. So yesterday when I started tearing this engine down, it was just beginning to snow, but it didn't actually stick. Today I've woken up and outside looks like this. Definitely a day for staying in the garage. Now we've removed the cylinder head, the next tasks are to remove the timing chain system and camshaft and the flywheel. To remove these, it requires two very large bolts to be undone, and to undo them, we need to stop the engine from rotating. Now, unfortunately, due to the Mini's design, you can't use a universal flywheel locking tool because the flywheel is recessed into this casting. I did years ago build a locking tool for Mini, however I have no idea where it is, and I have a feeling it possibly isn't at my dad's. With the current global situation, I can't travel there to go get it, so that means I've got to build a new tool. That's going to require a little bit of this, and a bit of this, and a bit of this, and we get this. One homemade flywheel locking tool. And it fits the engine like so. Often crank pulleys and flywheels are fitted onto a tapered shaft, which will require the use of a puller to remove them. Well, it's another day, and after failed attempts of getting the flywheel off, I've gone out and got another puller, so let's have a second attempt at this. Voila! The importance of quality tools. Now that the flywheel's out of the way, we can take the clutch housing off and then remove the gearbox from the engine block.
I have been taken by the words that you say. The voice that carries them has kept me astray.
So these are what are called the mini drop gears. These take the drive from the crank through the clutch and down from the engine into the gearbox. Apparently, originally, when the Mini was designed, the engine was around the other way, but by turning it around, there showed a few issues with icing of the carb, and they managed to get the torque that they wanted. You can replace these with what are called straight drops, and your engine will whine like crazy.
Darn it, can we ever be? That all depends on what
I may keep that.
all the way.
Now, once I've removed the gearbox, I'm not actually going to strip this down for the time being. A couple of reasons for this. One, I actually want to use a lot of the internals on the assumption that they're in good condition in another gearbox that I've got that's incomplete. Keeping the gearbox together keeps everything in order and reduces the space it takes up in storage. The other reason is, although the case is broken, I do want to use this as a potential mock-up in a future project. So I might as well keep the case with everything in it for the time being.
Let me show you all the ways. Oh, let me show you all the ways.
There's always one. Here is the step in the Haynes manual they seem to miss out. Knock out your big end bearing that's holding your gearbox casing and your engine block together. onto the juicy stuff, the actual internals of the engine. First thing I've noticed is that what I thought was the big end bearing of cylinder number 4 is actually the conrod. Where the big end bearing is, I don't know. There are remnants of the bearing shell in the gearbox casing. I'm guessing it's somewhere in the Mongolian steppe. The other 3 are not feeling to be in great condition, and obviously then we get to see what the main bearings are like as well. So let's take it apart. First thing, let's drive that piston out. I will not be using any of these parts again, so don't worry about how I'm treating them. Oh. Well, not surprising that there is no bearing shell, it's somewhere in there. The piston skirts are scuffed as hell. And there's pieces even taken out the bottom of the piston. I think that's scrap. Yeah, bearings aren't looking good. Yeah, there's not a lot left of that bearing. With the pistons removed, we can now remove the main seal, 3 bearing caps, and the crank comes out. Again, bearings are showing signs of wear, but I've pulled worse out of engines before. I wouldn't put them back in, but the crank main journals actually don't look too bad. Same can't be said for the conrods connect to, especially some number 2 there. The middle one's pretty much trashed. Yeah, and the crank is showing signs of damage. The rust bearings are pretty trashed. Yeah. Middle one completely gone. Well, that concludes the engine teardown. Well, that's the end of the episode. Thanks for watching. If you want to see the removal of the engine from the Mini, please click here. And if you want to keep up to date with the build of the Mini, then please subscribe to my channel.